Hello friends, welcome to the shed. How is your day today? I hope all is well with you wherever you are in the world. Let me know in the comments. Today we're talking about Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. Now, I'm rereading the series right now, and I hesitate to say I'm rereading the series because the first time I don't think I made it past book 3. I think the end of book 3 was just... yeah. And then book 4, I'm in book 4 now on my reread, and the reason that I wanted to have this discussion was the first time I read the books was like in 2004 or 5, somewhere around there. So I was like 25, 26, 27 maybe. It was at least 10 years ago when I read the books, and the second time through, I picked up reading with the revised edition of Gunslinger. And I really enjoyed the second reading of The Gunslinger way more than I remember enjoying the first version. The first time I read the books was because Jamie had read them and she fell in love with them, so I thought, okay, I should probably read these. And I read them and it was like, I have no clue what's happening. And the revised book seemed to fix a lot of the problems that I had with book 1, and that was just that Stephen King... I'm not a fan. No, I've never been a fan of Stephen King. And book 1 was an even more arrogant version of Stephen King than I normally feel he writes. It was he put this pressure on you as the reader to scratch your head, and that just annoys me when people do that. But book 2, the second reading, so here I am 10 years later, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, maybe it's because I grew up a little bit. Maybe it's because I'm not so... judgmental or whatever it might be. But yeah, so I wanted to hear your opinions, and I asked, and you shared. And I have a few things I wrote down here. We'll get to that one in a second. I Call Yellow said, I'm rereading them right now. Second only to Lord of the Rings for me is a meaningful and personally impactful series. That's pretty strong. I mean, Lord of the Rings, as most people my age would say, is what started fantasy for all of us. It is that keystone that really allowed fantasy to be okay, to be normal. So to say that this series is up there, that's pretty strong, I think. Dan Ward, Dan had a really, yeah. I'm just gonna read this. I started listening to it on audiobook after about 45 minutes, and after checking to see if I had accidentally inserted disc 5 instead of number 1, I realized I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And that is exactly the reason why I didn't like the books the first time I read them. It's not that I didn't like them. There's parts that I enjoy. I love the gunslinger persona. I love I love the way that Stephen King took that persona and put it in a fantasy world. In this fantasy world where that persona is the good guy. You can hear the way that he walks all bow-legged when he's walking. In your head, you're reading this stuff, and it's like you're watching a spaghetti western, but in this fantasy world. And so I enjoyed that. But what King does is, just like Dan basically just said, he assumes that you know this world. And... so going back to I Call Yellow's response, the problem that I have with the series is that King assumes that you understand, and he never gives you a basis to understand until later much later in the series. He never says this is the world that this exists in, and this is the normal for that world. There is no normal, and that's kind of the whole point of the series. This is a spoiler-free discussion. That's kind of the whole point of the series, is there is no normal. And we'll get back to that. So, Meeple Mountain said, they're a masterpiece, moved kind of slow in the middle, and I love that they tied into his other books. Now, like I said, I'm not a King fan, so I don't know a whole lot about his other books. I know enough to say, okay, this part's from The Stand, or this part's from, whatever. I don't really remember. But yeah, moving kind of slow in the middle is something that I really wanted to touch on here, and I believe that we have a phone call here. Let's see if this is it. Maybe this is the right one.
Hey, Chevee. This is Adam Brocker calling in about the Dark Tower series. the first three books for me were some of my favorites. I loved going through them. I loved the story. The fantasy was rich, and it was very unique and compelling. After that, the fourth book was good. But a lot of people say it has a lot of backstory and doesn't really advance the plot, which was unfortunate.
That's true.
After that, I was glad to read the other books, but there were definitely some problems with them. It feels very disjointed. Feels like a separation between the first books. I know there's a long period in time between when each of the books were written, but those felt very distinctly not like the first three books, at least to me. I enjoyed reading them, but at the time, because I really wanted to see where it was going, unfortunately, there are some problems with it. I'm not going to go into it, but
spoiler free, I ask.
Yeah, I love reading the first three books, even the fourth book, but after that, I was kind of disappointed. But it'd be hard to follow up those three books because those ones are fantastic. So, as always, love the show. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Adam. You get some applause for that call. Thank you. That is exactly the thought process that I went through reading these again. The fact is that I believe that books 1 through 3 were written very quickly, and then book 4 took a while, and then it was like 2 decades before book 5 was written. And it's obvious when you read them that that's the case. King's writing style is completely different. His storytelling style is completely different. The entire tone changes, and some people like that, some people don't. And the funny thing is that there seems to be this disconnect between Stephen King and this series. If you like Stephen King, chances are you don't like this series. I've asked a lot of people over the years about this series because I'm still internally extremely confused by it. And most people say, I don't really like Stephen King, but I love The Dark Tower, or they say, no, I'm a huge Stephen King fan and I really don't like The Dark Tower. It's like, there's one side, that's it. Those are your two stances on this series. And I think we have another call, so let's listen to that one.
Hey, Chevy, this is Jay. Of course, your Google already probably said it. Looking at thoughts on Dark Tower. I'm not a big Stephen King fan, but I do actually like this series, and probably the biggest things that I dig about it is the world building. I'm enamored by the turn of phrase, just the way the characters talk, and just this odd mismatched world that they all exist in. And that's my quick soundbite. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, that's the sentiment that I was talking about. You either like Stephen King and you don't like The Dark Tower, or you like The Dark Tower and you don't like Stephen King. But there, obviously that's a broad generalization, and I don't try to like take my brush and say you all suck because you whatever. But that's the general sentiment I get from this series, and a lot of it comes back to what Jay just said. The world building is amazing. Like you've got this character that is stepped out of a spaghetti western, and he talks that way, mixed with characters from the 1980s in our world's New York, or kind of our world's New York, and then you have this lady who is like two different characters. You have all these things, and that's kind of the whole point of the Dark Tower series, is that there's no concrete world. You don't, at any given time, these characters could be just about anywhere, any when. And the problem is that you're not aware as a reader until the end of the series what the hell was going on. And so on top of this, we now have a movie coming out next year, which tons of people are really excited about, include me in that. This movie it's going to be awesome because I want to see the way that the works have been adapted. Because this movie is not it's not an adaptation of these books. It's more of a separate story that exists. Call it a sequel. If you've read the Dark Tower series, you'll know that there's no time, so it could have happened at any point. And if you read the synopsis, it is completely different. And the character, the cast of characters, we have Roland and we have Jake, who kind of have to exist. Those are basically the main characters of the books. There's more main characters of the books, but those other characters don't exist. We have Roland and Jake. Roland's being played by Idris Elba. I absolutely love that casting. I see Idris Elba and I see Roland. People are upset that he's not white. Who cares? It doesn't matter. In the book series, he's white, and the only real reason that we know that is because one of the characters was an extremely racist black woman, and so we knew that from her. But the thing you have to understand is, in the movies Where and When, Roland is black, and in this whole world of the Dark Tower, that's okay. That's completely acceptable. And Jake is Tom Taylor. I don't know who that is. It's obviously a child actor, so I'm not sure who that is. But Walter, Matthew McConaughey, that is like the perfection of casting that character. I really don't know who else I could pick that's currently alive to fill that role. Matthew McConaughey is the perfect kind of calm crazy that fits that role perfectly. So if you have thoughts about the movie, please let me know those in the comments down below. If you have continuing thoughts about the books, there's comments down below. That's what the show's about. It's a discussion program, so please let me know what you think about the Dark Tower series, if you're excited about the movie. If you do say some things that are more in-depth than what I've said here, please put spoiler tags down there so people who are interested in reading the books because the movie's coming out, they don't accidentally read something. But thank you all, as always, for being here. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. I'm going to keep doing this format where I ask you for stuff in advance. So please, if you haven't paid attention yet, head over to thedailyshed.com/calendar. Check out the upcoming shows and, call in, send me some tweets, send me some Facebook messages, emails, chevee@thedailyshed.com, and help interact before I record the shows. So, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you tomorrow.
Hey, Doc, wait! I want to ask you something.
Today's random fact, wikipedia.org, big surprise. What is petrified wood? What the heck? Petrified wood is a fossil in which the organic remains have been replaced by minerals in the slow process of being replaced with stone. This petrification process generally results in a quartz chalcedony mineralization. What? Chalcedony? Basically, wood fibers and cells are replaced by minerals over time. It's not really wood anymore. It's a stone.